The nation is still bracing for a memorial that has yet to unfold. A memorial expected to draw tens of thousands, guarded like a state funeral, and watched by millions across the globe. Charlie Kirk's assassination left a movement without its figurehead, and his widow, Erika Kirk, has been thrust into a role she never asked for. CEO, mother, and now the public face of his legacy. But behind the stage lights and speeches lies a darker reality. When one leader falls, the question becomes not only who will rise, but who might be targeted next. As the world turns its eyes to Arizona, we ask, is Erika Kirk stepping into a tribute or stepping into a storm? Before we dive into today's story, kindly subscribe to our Shadow Detective channel if you believe in fighting for justice. Kindly help us reach 300 subscribers, and we believe that with energy and support, we will achieve it. Let's build this community that refuses to stay silent, to stop asking the hardest question of all, but why? Every view, every comment, and every subscriber is a stand against silence and a step toward truth for those who can't fight for themselves. Charlie Kirk's death marked more than just a violent end. It was a rupture that altered the direction of American conservatism. The shock came instantly, and its aftershocks continue to spread through politics, media, and culture. In response, a massive memorial is set to take place at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, a venue capable of holding over 60,000 people, with additional overflow space already arranged. The guest list underscores its significance. Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and other leading figures of the movement are expected to attend. The Department of Homeland Security has elevated the gathering to its highest security level, a distinction typically reserved for presidential inaugurations and world summits. At the center of it all stands Erika Kirk, once known mainly as Charlie's wife and the mother of their 2 young children. She now steps into a role she never sought, CEO of Turning Point USA, the organization her husband built from the ground up. Her transformation is not one of ambition, but of loss, carrying both private grief and public responsibility. In an instant, she has become not only a widow, but the symbolic torchbearer of a movement forced to confront its own uncertain future. Why does this moment matter? Because it is more than a memorial, more than a series of speeches. It is a crossroads, for a movement searching for its direction, for a family enduring unimaginable loss, and for a nation watching to see what comes next. History shows a pattern. When a public figure is taken down, the people closest to them are thrust into the spotlight. They inherit the responsibilities, the risks, and the scrutiny. Erika Kirk now carries both her husband's legacy and the burden of navigating a world that views her through a fragile mix of power, grief, and vulnerability. The memorial will be unlike anything seen for someone outside elected office. Tens of thousands are expected to crowd State Farm Stadium, with millions more watching from afar. Its scale alone sends a message. This is not simply a farewell. To supporters, it is a rallying point, a chance to honor Charlie Kirk's vision. To critics, it represents a deepening of America's political divide, and to security officials, it's a high-risk convergence, a massive audience, a widow newly elevated to leadership, and a nation still reeling from the violence that began it all. That is why this moment carries so much weight. Because it is no longer only about one man's death, it is about the ripple effect his absence creates on his family, on a movement, and on a country struggling to decide what comes next. The security response reflects that magnitude. Officials have placed the stadium under a SEER Level 1 designation, the highest classification in the United States. The same level given to presidential inaugurations and international summits. That means the U.S. Secret Service, the Department of Homeland Security, and local law enforcement are all working in unison to secure what has now become one of the most closely guarded memorials in modern history. Every layer of security has been reinforced. Bags are banned. Every entrance will be guarded by metal detectors, explosive-sniffing dogs, and strict credential checks. Above the stadium, surveillance drones will monitor the skies, while tactical units wait on standby. Officials understand the stakes. an event of this scale, filled with national figures and broadcast live across the country, is a prime target for disruption. That concern deepened after a recent incident. Just days before the memorial, authorities arrested a man near the stadium carrying a firearm, a knife, and expired credentials. He claimed he was there to provide security for a guest, but investigators confirmed he had no authorization. The arrest underscored the reality of the challenge, that securing tens of thousands of people, many already charged with emotion, is a task filled with risk. Law enforcement has been blunt in its message. This memorial is not only a moment of remembrance, it is a massive, high-risk security operation. And at the very heart of it all stands Erika Kirk. She will enter that stadium not only as a grieving widow, but as the newly anointed face of her husband's movement, carrying its weight, its hopes, and its future under the sharpest spotlight imaginable. The arrest outside the stadium was not the first warning sign. In the weeks since Charlie Kirk's assassination, a quiet timeline of red flags has begun to take shape. Each one, viewed alone, could be dismissed as isolated. But together they reveal a pattern that officials cannot ignore. Almost immediately after the shooting, federal agencies noted a surge in online chatter, heated rhetoric, vague threats of retaliation, and cryptic posts hinting at future disruptions. Authorities have not revealed every detail, but they confirmed that multiple threat assessments were launched in the days that followed. Then came the arrest. A man found near the stadium carrying a firearm, a knife, and expired credentials. His claim, that he was there to provide security for a guest, only deepened the unease. How could someone unauthorized get that close to the perimeter of what is now the most heavily guarded event of the year? Behind the scenes, security teams have been working against the clock. The Department of Homeland Security raised the memorial's status to its highest threat preparation tier, citing both the scale of the crowd and the prominence of those attending. But each development leads back to the same unsettling question: if breaches and warning signs are emerging before the memorial even begins, what could unfold once tens of thousands fill the arena and cameras broadcast every moment live? These concerns are not theoretical. They serve as a stark reminder of how fragile public safety becomes when grief, politics, and emotion converge on one stage. Security professionals often use a phrase that sounds deceptively simple: the unnoticed individual. At large events, the most serious threat is rarely the loudest protester or the most obvious agitator. It is the person who blends in, the one who looks like they belong until they don't. For the Charlie Kirk Memorial, that risk is magnified. Tens of thousands will stream into the stadium, all funneled through scanners, checkpoints, and credential checks. But in crowds that large, security experts warn, it only takes a single lapse, a forged pass, an unchecked bag, or one overlooked moment to expose a vulnerability. This is why the memorial has been elevated to the nation's strictest security tier, placing Secret Service, Homeland Security, and local law enforcement in full coordination. Yet even with the best technology and the strongest manpower, history shows that breaches often come from the unexpected: insiders, contractors, or individuals who exploit routine procedures in plain sight. The unnoticed individual is not just a concept, it's a warning. It reminds us that the greatest danger at this memorial may not come from the obvious threat, but from the face in the crowd that nobody stopped to question. And for Erika Kirk, a grieving widow now standing at the center of her husband's movement, it is a reminder of just how precarious her role has become. Because in high-profile cases like this, one word always carries immense weight: confession. It is often treated as the final answer, the moment when uncertainty ends. But history has taught us something else as well: not every confession is equal, and not every confession can be trusted. In the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, law enforcement has been deliberate, careful about what information is shared with the public. Yet scattered statements have surfaced, individuals stepping forward to claim they knew more, or that they were somehow involved. To the public ear, these sound like shocking confessions. But investigators know the risks. Some people seek attention, Others try to deflect suspicion, and some may even confess under pressure, despite having no evidence to back their words. This is why verification matters. A confession on its own is not proof. It must be weighed against physical evidence, timelines, and credible witness accounts. Without that process, it is only noise, a distraction from the truth. Handled correctly, a genuine confession could change everything. It could alter the trajectory of the investigation, expose hidden networks, and even determine whether Erika Kirk herself remains in danger. But a false confession could do the opposite. Divert resources, waste time, and blind investigators to the threats that truly exist. And so the question becomes, in a climate of grief, political tension, and rising uncertainty, what do we believe? And just as important, what must we challenge? Because in cases like this, a confession is never the end of the story, it is only the beginning. At the center of it all is Erika Kirk. She never sought the spotlight. For years she was known simply as Charlie Kirk's wife, the mother of their 2 young children, and a quiet advocate for faith and family values. She co-hosted podcasts, supported charities, and built her own reputation as someone content to stand beside her husband rather than in front of him. That changed in an instant. With Charlie gone, Erika Kirk was named CEO of Turning Point USA, the very institution her husband had built into a national force. Overnight, she shifted from private partner to public leader, carrying not only the weight of personal grief, but also the responsibility of guiding a movement with millions of followers and outsized political influence. For Erika, the memorial is more than a farewell. It is her first moment on stage as both widow and leader, 2 identities that do not easily coexist. Every word, every gesture, will be measured not only as an expression of loss, but as a signal of how Turning Point USA intends to move forward under her leadership. But as the memorial approaches, investigators face unresolved questions. Charlie Kirk's murder was not a random act of violence. It was a public assassination with political implications, and yet the full story remains incomplete. How carefully was the attack planned? Was the shooter acting alone, or did unseen collaborators provide support? And now that Erika Kirk occupies a role of such visibility, what level of threat assessment has been carried out to safeguard her? The gaps extend further. Surveillance footage, eyewitness testimony, and digital records all exist, but much of it has not been released. Officials insist the silence is necessary to protect the integrity of the investigation. To a shaken public, however, the silence feels like exposure, as if vital protections are being withheld. That uncertainty now hangs over the memorial itself. With tens of thousands expected at State Farm Stadium, including national leaders and ordinary citizens alike, security is not simply about crowd control. It is about preventing history from repeating itself. Every unanswered question, every unaddressed vulnerability, fuels the fear that tragedy could strike again. And at the center of this storm stands Erika Kirk, a grieving widow, a newly appointed CEO, and now a figure who may carry risks the public cannot yet see. Her role has shifted in ways few could have imagined. Inheriting leadership after her husband's assassination, she has become one of the most visible figures in a movement that stretches across the nation. That visibility grants influence, but it also attracts danger. This is not speculation. Security experts agree that public figures thrust into high-profile leadership during moments of crisis often become natural focal points, including for potential threats. Erika embodies several powerful symbols at once: the wife of Charlie Kirk, the head of the organization he built, and the public face of a movement at a turning point. And symbols, history reminds us, are often the first to be targeted. Authorities are not blind to this reality. Protective measures have been strengthened, with the Secret Service, DHS, and local law enforcement working together to control entry points, verify credentials, and monitor the massive crowd. Yet history also warns that the gravest risks can emerge from the unexpected: a forged pass, a single lapse in timing, or the unnoticed individual who blends into the background until it is too late. For Erika, every step she takes inside that stadium will unfold under relentless scrutiny, from supporters, from critics, from cameras, and perhaps from those who see her as a point of vulnerability. In this moment, leadership and fragility collide. She must shoulder personal grief, immense public responsibility, and the shadow of very real risk, all at once. As Erika Kirk steps into this extraordinary role, we invite you, the viewer, to pause and reflect. The memorial, the unprecedented security, and the unanswered questions surrounding this moment all matter, and your awareness plays a role in how this story is understood. Ask yourself, what do we truly know, and what still needs to be uncovered? How can we, as a community, push for transparency, support public safety, and honor those touched by tragedy, without slipping into sensationalism? We encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments, but to do so responsibly and respectfully. Which unanswered questions about the memorial or Erika's new leadership feel most urgent to you? And if you hold credible information, use verified channels to share it with the proper authorities. For continued coverage, subscribe to stay updated as this story develops. We will keep tracking the investigation, examining verified evidence, and offering a careful perspective on Erika Kirk's journey, the memorial, and the broader impact of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Your engagement matters. It helps sustain accountability, fosters informed discussion, and ensures this story is told with the depth it deserves.